Setting up for Coda Radio 390. We are in the home stretch. No, 330. Wait, 90. Oh, shit. I gotta go fix the title. Damn, I was getting so excited. It all blurs together. I guess I should celebrate for what I've got then. If I want to be excited, I should be excited for 330, because that's the legit number.
Really?
Yeah, really. That is the legit number. The ding confirms it. All right, YouTube is up. JBLive.tv is up. Twitch is up. Ustream might not be up, actually.
Damn it! Somebody get the Ustream up!
Like there's somebody else here for me to yell at. I'm the only person in the building. All right, so we got some Arnold Janks we're going to be doing. I want to play one for you, and tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of this one. It's a little out there, but I think it's one of his better ones. And it's on his latest album, Roads Deep, and this is called Arp Island. All right, setting up for 330 now. I got an error message back from YouTube just a couple of minutes ago around the title because I tried to change the YouTube title from 390 to 330, and the error message that YouTube gives me back is incorrect API response. So, isn't that your own problem? I am dealing with your platform, and you're telling me your own API is giving you an incorrect response? How is that my problem? I don't get that one, YouTube. So anyways, getting set up, gonna have a fun episode. We just had another new download episode go out this morning. If you're on the Coder Radio feed, it's out there already. And it'll be on the All Shows feed soon. And this one will be held for a little bit while I'm in Meet BSD. So if you're listening live, you get a little sneaky preview. Adobe's making news today. We'll talk about one of the stories in the shows, but they also announced Project Arrow, a new tool for building an AR experience for iOS, and Project Gemini, a standalone drawing app for the iPad. They're in beta. I don't know why I say it like that, other than I just feel like saying beta. They're in beta. They're in beta. You're here for my weird warming up process, apparently, today. Today's going to be one of the weird ones, I guess. Okay. Getting the chat room set up, so we got a chat room there. That's a pretty cool transition with the snow.
I think it's snow.
The file name says white dots, but I feel like there's snow. Yeah, oh yeah, also Project Rush. So, X-Men rightly points out, Adobe makes Premiere Rush, its cross-platform video editing app previously in beta, widely available for iOS, Windows, and Mac today, and in the Play Store in 2019. Seems like a big-ish deal. A host of improvements are on the way. Android support will land next year, along with video speed controls and the ability to simultaneously publish videos to multiple platforms. Looks nice. It looks really nice. You know, it has me thinking, can I get this working on Linux somehow? That's what has me thinking. New Palm device is out. Boy, the reviews for the Pixel 3 camera are just really good. Really complimentary. The best camera phone gets better, with a far better screen, loudspeakers. The notch is doofy, though, it says in the review from The Verge. Pixel 3 best-in-class cameras and new wide-angle selfies are impressive. Build quality is premium, but it's an incremental update from the Pixel 2, says apparently the Charged podcast? Charge Tech podcast. Oh, I get it. Like, you know, you got to charge up your tech. It's cute. It's hard to come up with a good title, a good name. Yeah, I agree, X-Men. You know, you put that on a tablet or a really large screen Android phone or iPhone, and you could shoot video. The thing is, it's like the Pixel.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Hold on.
Messed up an in-studio setting. Sorry about that. Anyways, what I was just going to say is the camera on the Pixel series and the iPhone XS it's really just phenomenal. I was just screwing around while we were out camping with the kids 2 weekends ago, and I probably filmed about an hour and a half worth of footage on and off on my iPhone XS, and you'd think the thing's on a gimbal. The 4K footage looks incredible, and you'd think the damn thing's on a gimbal. It's so nice, and I'm walking down trails and stuff. So to be able to quickly turn that around, like you don't have to do fancy like Casey Neistat editing, right? Even if it's like an interview, I'm at an event, to be able to trim that around and send it back to the studio, killer feature. I really hope that works out. I hope we see that. Oh, you got a video for me, eh? We'll see what we get here. You know me, I'm always down for a pre-show vid. Oh, look at this. It's probably gonna get me copy flagged. You know how these guys work. But let's take a look. Little rando video on the pre-show. You know me. All right, let's see if I can get that dialed in for you a little bit there. This is a really weird cropping on this machine because we don't do a lot of video encoder. Okay, so here we go. That'll work. All right, let's take a look at this.
So Project Rush is the first all-in-one online video creation tool from Adobe. What makes Rush really unique is that it's cross-platform, so it's available on desktop and on mobile. It automatically syncs your projects through the cloud so that you can work cross-device wherever you are, and it's built on the core of our professional applications. So it leverages a lot of the power of our pro applications such as Premiere Pro, Audition, After Effects. You can really go from shooting all the way to sharing in Rush.
So I need X-Men. Maybe you know better than me. I need some clarification here. What is, when they say online creators? They don't mean like a online editing application. They mean like YouTubers, right? So they don't mean like, because she said the way she introduces this, she makes it sound like it's an online video editor. Listen,
So Project Rush is the first all-in-one online video creation tool
you see how that all-in-one online video creation tool,
from Adobe.
it makes it sound like it's like a WebAssembly application or a JavaScript application that you could run in a Chrome tab. But it actually requires a binary on each system, right?
What makes Rush really unique is that it's cross-platform, so it's available on desktop and on mobile. It automatically syncs your projects through the cloud so that you can work cross-device wherever you are, and it's built on the core of our professional applications. So it leverages a lot of the power of our pro applications such as Premiere Pro, Audition, After Effects. You can really go from shooting all the way to sharing in Rush. It's an end-to-end experience, and that is one of the pain points we were hearing from our users in particular, is they were using a lot of different tools in their workflow today, and we've tried to bring all of the things that these folks were using into one tool. So on mobile, you can actually begin capturing content right natively within Rush. Then you can edit, sweeten the audio, do color correction, basically add titles. Motion graphics templates are what Rush uses. You can go ahead and leverage the power of our pro tools from a titling perspective, and then publish directly to social right from within Rush. So the typical person to work with Rush.
Public directly to social. I love how business people now talk about online stuff. You can publish directly to social. I have heard people say that before, too.
And then publish directly to social right.
Yeah, because that's not even a thing. It's weird. It's like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of verbal abstraction. We do it everywhere. We do it in development. We do it in concepts. Terrorism, right? It's terrorism. That is a massive, massive, massive abstraction. And so is published directly to social. Like, social is this whole category of websites, all of which have different requirements, different feature sets for video, right? It's a very complicated thing, but you just abstract it away to social. That's good.
Leverage the power of our pro tools from a titling perspective, and then publish directly to social right from within Rush.
Woo!
So the typical person to work with Rush is an online video creator.
Hey, that's
so
me.
Somebody who is building content for social media, most likely creating multiple versions of the same types of content for various social platforms and optimizing for those platforms. So one of the workflows that we hear from a lot of social creators is that they'll create a main sequence, perhaps for YouTube, and then they're duplicating that sequence and changing things for each social platform. And that's absolutely possible in Rush, and one of the things that we believe people are going to do very frequently, because we know it's an important part of publishing to social, is having content available and optimized for all the different channels that you publish to. You can certainly switch aspect ratio within Rush today. Whatever aspect ratio the first clip is in your frame is going to set it for the sequence, but then you have portrait, landscape, and square as well. And when you change the aspect ratio, it will reflow the graphics out automatically, so it's going to maintain the integrity of your visual design. And those titles are motion graphics templates, so they can be built out in Premiere Pro.
See, when she says motion graphics, does she actually mean motion graphics, or does she mean they're elements that can be edited in After Effects? Because motion files are Apple Motion, which is a competitor to After Effects, which has a huge market of templates you can build and customize from. And for my brain, motion is a little easier to understand. But I can't tell if she's actually saying that they're supporting an Apple file format for an Apple editor that is competitive with After Effects, or if she's using the term generically at an abstract level to mean titles in which can be edited and they have motion in them.
in out automatically, so it's going to maintain the integrity of your visual design. And those titles are motion graphics templates, so they can be built out in Premiere Pro or in After Effects by professional designers. They're consumed in Rush, so the end user doesn't have to know how to do motion graphics in order to have really high quality titling opportunities in the product.
Bad. You know, that's it looks like if you took Kdenlive Live and gave it a little bit of a facelift.
So we've leveraged some of the power of Audition in Rush. One key thing being auto ducking and automatic tagging of your media types. So it's really easy to mix audio with just one click. We've taken so much of our pro technology and really simplified the experience for the user. It's really running through the same engine that powers Audition, but it doesn't require as much of a knowledge about audio editing as somebody that has gone to school for editing would have.
Because YouTubers don't know what the hell they're doing is what she's saying. She's basically saying YouTubers are too dumb to use the Pro Tools. That's going to win over YouTubers. You know, to be honest with you, any YouTuber that's making any money wants their tools to be more powerful and have more features. I think that's a bit of like what happens when they are talking about the millennials. They start abstracting. Oh, I got a theme. We got a pre-show theme. Oh! So they abstract out all the YouTubers to these general no talent, don't know how to frame a shot, don't know how to edit video. They picked up their cell phone and they recorded their cat scratching itself and they went famous. It's sort of it's stereotyping. I think it's a failure to recognize where the market's at. Like, this is a nice tool and it's a good starting point. It needed to be here they needed to have this here 5 years ago, really. And 2 years ago, I think, would have been just right. And now it's nice to see. It's a little surprising it's not further along and better. And then that they would be at a point, if they had released it a couple of years ago, where they would have time to better understand their audience. Right now, you've got a bunch of people who don't make YouTube videos sitting around in Adobe conference rooms coming up with the target marketing lingo for this application and what it should be focused at, so that way they know what features to develop. And it's abstract. It's all abstract. But once you get the product out in the market and people actually start consuming it and using it and giving you feedback, well, then you start to get an idea that perhaps maybe they're not a bunch of idiots. Maybe they need tools that are pretty powerful for them, and maybe labeling them as morons isn't the best way to go. I'm just saying that's probably what would happen. Maybe not. It is Adobe.
Engine that powers Audition, but it doesn't require as much of a knowledge about audio editing as somebody that has gone to school for editing would have.
This really looks a lot like Final Cut 10. I'm surprised it took me this long, but if you've listened to some shows, Rika and I've talked about this. What you're seeing here is these blocks of video clips which are sort of magnetically connected together, and you can pop in something else, and the clip on the other end will move over and get out of its way, and there won't be a gap in the video. But the other thing that this does is it thumbnails the video along, so as you're looking at the timeline, you get a rough estimation of where it is on the video, so you know where to zoom in. So instead of it just being clip 1 with a blue bar to represent the video, you actually see thumbnails generated of the video. Then below it, beneath it, you get the waveforms there of the audio. That is super valuable information. And then the way you can draw the ducking in the bottom green waveform there is also exactly how it's done in Final Cut. And then that first clip that has those yellow borders around it, that's exactly how that's done in Final Cut, except for their white borders.
Premiere Pro has the ability to open Rush projects. So if you are a professional editor and you are interested in mobile, you can go shoot when you're out, on your phone, get started in Rush, start making your project, open it up in Premiere, and then finish it there when you're back at home.
Now we're talking.
So Rush will be available later this year. It is will be a part of Creative Cloud, as well as available as a single application. Right now we're in private beta.
Private beta. There you go. How do I get on that? I want to try it. Hello, Mr. Dominic.
Hello.
I was just going over some Adobe announcements.
Yeah, the usual.
They're finally making a video editor to compete with Final Cut 10, and it's on mobile too. Woo! Anyways, not really clear on what part of that is online and versus offline, but they talk a lot about it. So, Adobe. It's Adobe Day, apparently. I wonder if, there is a rumor that there may be Apple invites going out on the 20th for an iPad event. iPad. iPad. It's the year of the iPad.
Get out of here.
Too loud. I'm sitting right here. You don't need to shout in my ear. I'm sitting right here. Well, we have, I think, everything in the go position, other than the fact that I am hungry AF. But I
am pouring my gin martini right now.
I gotta wait till after the show to eat, I think, because I can't eat during the show. Who wants to listen to, you know?
I do, Chris. That's right.
Okay. Kill the autoplay. Kill the autoplay. Okay, chat room, we're about to get going. You know what you got to do? You got to bang suggest us the podcast title. It's your chance to title the Honorable 330 edition, the 330th edition of your Coder Radio program. It is on you. jbtitles.com is where you go, and I don't know, come up with something good, clever, funny, and we'll probably use it. If you come up with something dumb, we'll probably ignore it. All right. Are you? Oh, no, don't be doing that. That's the cardinal sin. Don't. Come on now.
Inappropriate?
Inappropriate.
I'm napping my way to glory, Chris. It's what I do.
Really? All right. I like that past you can argue with future you now. That's
I know.
That's
It's
great.
very schizophrenic, but let's do it.
All right.
Get it out of here.
Let's get going. Chat room, please bang suggest. I'll say hello to Future Ham. Hello, Future Ham. Mr. Dominic and I are setting up for 3:30 right now. And here we go. It begins in a 3, in a 2. This is Coder Radio, episode 330 for October 15th, 2018. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is really me cowering in the corner, preparing to go into the BSD den while I seek comfort from my co-host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Be careful of the pitchforks. It's 3 prongs, not what you want.
These BSD guys walk around with the horns, man. It's intimidating, you know? Because
You know
they're
what?
dangerous.
The BSD meetups and Satanist cults, sometimes people get confused and end up at the wrong place.
Yeah, actually, you joke, but they hand out these horns as sort of like a branding thing, and they light up, and then you forget they're on your head, and we go out and get lunch, and we have actually gotten people thought that we were Satanists. That actually somebody walked up to us and started to give us the riot act, and we had to explain to them that we were actually not Satanists. We were just really geeky.
Yeah, see, if you go to a Linux convention and they give you like a stuffed, tux, people just think you're a weird guy carrying a stuffed animal. Which you also get,
True.
younger men walking up to you in full police garb saying, "Hi, sir. What brings you to Toys R Us today?"
I have to tell you, though, listening to Alan Jude try to explain to a hysterical old lady that we were not a group of Satanists was the highlight of the trip, and I can't believe I've never shared that story on the show before now that I think about
That's
it.
amazing.
It was so good.
That's amazing.
It was
You
so
should have
good.
taped it and put it on YouTube.
I wish I had. It's just the time we were alarmed. Well, that's not what we're here to talk about, though. We have feedback and follow-up from last week's episode. We might pontificate a bit on the future of .NET and more. Plus, if we make it, we have got some excellent hoopla this week. We got a couple of massive emails into the show, so I'm going to keep it limited to just a couple, and we'll go to those. Our first one comes in from Matthew, and he has follow-up thoughts on your observations recently of some interviewees from the local school who their most in-depth experience with Linux was the subsystem on Windows 10. And Matthew says, "Hey there. After listening to Mike's trouble with university students' lack of Linux experience in Coder Radio 328, I thought I might be able to add perspective. I'm a fifth-year computer engineer student at the University of Florida, and I have been heavily involved with the open source club here. As a club, we primarily work on student-run open source projects, as well as do workshops on different open source technologies. he mentions that, of course, your favorite Rust is in there, as well as Docker and a few others. You're the Rust lover now. Though we like to nudge people towards Linux, and quite a few Linux installations overall, most our members' day-to-day OS is either Windows or Mac OS. I'd say around 2/3 on Windows, and the rest are on Mac OS. There is not a lot of virtual machine use outside of a couple of classes. They're really just too slow on most machines given the other options available. Most people with Macs are happy just using Bash and Homebrew. Windows is a little more mixed. Most probably have the subsystem installed in case they do a lot of their command line stuff there. However, those with the Linux dual boot, around 20%, will switch to that for development purposes. I think a big reason most people don't use Linux daily is because the classes make it really hard to do so. There are some courses that require building code on Linux machines, and then most people go to the CS Computer Lab for that. We call it the dungeon. A lot of classes require the use of Windows or Mac OS only software, like the Lockdown browser. It's an anti-cheating browser that prevents you from looking at other windows while taking quizzes, and it reports if it detects a virtualized environment. It's also just annoying to switch back and forth between OSs. So even the ones of us who do have a Linux distro installed end up just using Windows a lot of the time anyways. Not to mention, there is an understandable fear that if someone messes up a Linux install, they might lose their data. So I do think there is a lot of us with some Linux experience who want more. It's just really hard to justify installing and using it when classes make it really difficult to do so on a day-to-day basis. Feel free to contact me, though, if you want any more information on this, the Open Source Club, or anything else. Have a good one, Matthew. So the classes, you know what? That is so typical, Mike, when you think about it. A courseware that should be preparing you for the real world locks you into using the system that isn't the ideal for the course, so that way they can make sure you're not cheating and things like that, because that will prevent the cheating.
Yeah, I'm also curious as to what they define as cheating, right? Is Stack Overflow cheating? Because, if you're preparing them for jobs as professional programmers, yeah.
It's like the argument that when I was a kid, the hot argument was, should we allow calculators in the class?
Oh, those days are gone.
I know, right?
Those days are gone.
But now the argument should we allow Google in the class? And if Google is a legitimate tool that you would be using to solve a particular problem and, finding pages like Stack Exchange, should we allow it? It would be negligent for a professional in the field to pretend like Google doesn't exist. That would be considered negligence.
Well, you wouldn't survive,
No.
right? You wouldn't survive in the commercial market for very long if you didn't rely on that stuff. But actually, it's... Oh, this is going to get me in trouble.
I love it already.
So there's a big difference between an academic computer science teacher and an actual professional developer. I am not making a value judgment.
Yeah.
But it's like, practical software development is very different from comp sci, what's the fastest algorithm, all your bullshit, N plus blah.
Well, and on top
yes,
of that,
it matters. I can feel your keyboards clanking in rage on the table.
No, I think it's fair. I think it's fair because a teacher of development has the job of being a teacher. So they're taking care of student issues, faculty issues. There is so much more that they are focused on than somebody who is a full-time developer who is developing software full-time. And they're, it's not like they're only developing software. They're attending team meetings or whatever they might be doing, screwing around on Twitter. They don't only develop, but it is simply not practical to expect that somebody teaching it could be as fully intimately versed as somebody who is doing it day to day, unless maybe that teacher had 20, 30 years of experience in the field first. That's unfortunate, though, because that means that the students kind of come away with a half-baked preparedness. Like,
well, what I find is it's like pub trivia, right? Like, particularly like, what's the book? The Perl book. Programming Pearls is actually the title of the book, but it's basically it's a book of design patterns. And I read it once years ago, and I honestly could not name more than like 10 design patterns. But I'm finding that I guess I find the pub trivia version of software development very annoying. Yeah. Like when people, right, and this sometimes happens to me when I go to events. People want to talk about the most obscure crap and like the mathematical, like, oh, well, that's actually inefficient. Actually, do you know what's inefficient? Not shipping, right?
Yes.
in most cases, I'll give you an example. In a comp sci classroom, you don't have a client breathing down your neck looking for a delivery in 4 hours.
And
right?
adding constant scope creep.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, no one really cares in the real world if you use the most efficient algorithm. I am not advocating shitty work. Like, that's not my intention. But I am also not advocating what I consider, this is not going to be our G-rated show, masturbatorial comp sci. I'm doing this for a long time, Chris, and every year, every time I get a little older, I find it more and more annoying.
Yeah.
And it really only matters in very few cases, and even in those cases, it doesn't matter all the time.
I'll give you a real world example that I just recently learned of. Here's why I don't like this. It is requiring software that's Windows or Mac only and preventing students from using Linux prevents them from expressing an interest which could become a strength once they become employed. And that you could actually be leaving them a little like one arm tied behind their back kind of deal. I'll give you an example. I picked up the book that was recommended on ATP a few weeks ago, The Creative Selection, the book that goes into the development of the Safari browser and the keyboard for the iPhone, as well as a bunch of other things. Super fascinating. And the part that really kind of stands out to me and is a comparable analogy to this situation is the developers inside Apple were trying to create a web browser. They had decided that this was something that was a platform imperative, and they had a very strict mandate from day one. It had to be fast. Like, everything had to be fast. Eventually, even every code commit change was tested against a benchmark to make sure that the browser didn't get any faster. And that even includes when it came time to add support for funky banking websites or weird little edge cases. They had to come up with ways to support that stuff and still come through clean on the benchmark. But before they got that far, they got stuck in the mud for more than 6 weeks. I mean, they drug on and on and on trying to get the original, what they called Mozilla source code, which became Firefox, working on Mac OS. Tried to get it working because they were going to build their web browser around Gecko. It was a foregone conclusion. Netscape had open sourced this code. It was the obvious way to go. And so the yet-to-be-named Safari browser was going to be a Gecko-based browser. And they couldn't get it to build. They didn't get any help from Mozilla because the Mac was tiny. Right? This is pre Apple's resurgence, so the Mac was tiny. And then Mozilla wasn't interested. And so they began to scale their team, try to bring on somebody that could help. They hired an individual. All this is in the book. He had like a post-interview with them, a post-hiring interview. And said, okay, tell me what you've been working on. Tell me what your struggle is. And he listened to everything they said. And he said, okay, well, we'll meet again next week. So he goes off for just a couple of days, 2 days, actually. Took these guys 6 weeks. He goes off for 2 days. And he gets the Konqueror web browser working. Because he was a passionate Linux user. And he knew how to use Linux, and he knew about the KDE desktop environment, and he knew about the Konqueror web browser, and he knew he could get X11 working on the Mac OS, and he knew he could get Qt working. And so he created a shim to run Konqueror on Mac OS, and in 2 days had a whole demo ready for them to go where they could browse web pages, they could click on links, they could go back in the web browser. In 2 days, he managed to get a web browser up and running that had taken the team 6 weeks to not get beyond a screen opening and then immediately closing. And it was this sort of home turf advantage that he had because he knew about this project. He had been using Linux, and the team had no insight into that. Now, if you can bring people into your team that have these different backgrounds of experience, it can be extremely valuable. And so when they had that demo, they saw that demo, it was a foregone conclusion. We're going that way. We're going with KHTML. We're going to go with that. We're going to have to port all over. We're going to port Konqueror over. We'll do the whole thing. It was... They ended up kind of not really doing the whole thing, but they did end up going with KHTML, which became WebKit, and now is what the Safari browser is based off of. That guy solved the problem in 2 days. Took the team 6 weeks, and they hadn't even gotten that far.
Because he was used to the KDE environment, right?
He was just familiar with something else besides the silo that they were working in. And that's really my core point here with the students. There is a market skill advantage to having experience with other systems besides Windows and Mac OS, and for the students to be restricted from using those systems fully because of the requirements of the classroom. In a real sense, the very facility that's supposed to be preparing them for the real world is holding them back from fully realizing their possible potential. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, and just right off the bat, I would strongly recommend anyone read that book.
Yeah, good book.
I'm currently reading it now. It's amazing. Creative Selection is the title, I believe.
Yeah, and if you have any tangential interest in software development or projects and things like that, or Apple and iOS, it's worth listening to. But if you're not even into the Apple or iOS stuff, it's great. He used to work at Easel, so there's stuff in there about his early days with creating the GNOME file manager. It's a good book. All right.
So I just want to jump back to our writer real quick. Good on you for starting a software development club.
Yeah, the Open Source Club sounds cool. That's a great idea.
Well, yeah, it sounds amazing. Sorry, the Open Source Club, yeah.
They should all listen to Coder Radio. You know what I'm saying? They should all be...
They should listen to Coder Radio, and they should also be very careful to not use Rust. It's very important.
Get it out of here.
Oh, there he is. Oh, God.
H. Charles B. writes in, he says, I have some thoughts on testing. I agree that it's not the all, be all, end all of developing software. Nevertheless, here we go. Some sort of testing must be performed in order to validate the software. I am familiar with the write tests that fail and then write code that passes methodology. If you need a methodology, it is one to consider. At present, I write tests along with the code. That's not strictly the same as TDD, which is test-driven development. Also, I haven't been involved with projects where I would very much have liked to have accepted the test criteria available from the start. But that's really more getting into the specifications of getting a project nailed down before you kick off. At present, I start projects by choosing a language and a unit test framework. In some cases, the unit test framework is built right into the toolchain, so like Go or Rust, and likely others. For old languages,
I heard Rust drink.
Yeah, and here's a good one. For old languages like C and C++ and Perl, there are subtle...
Who are you calling old, Willis? Hang on. Whoa.
I know.
C++ is not old. It is a modern, dynamic, general-purpose programming language. We can move on from here. Keep going. Sorry.
All right. So he goes on to say, I agree with you, really. He goes on to say that here's some things he likes. He says you get instant gratification when you have unit testing. You have testable code that's usually better structured code. Parts can be exercised with corner cases and suspected trouble spots that might be difficult to reproduce in the finished application. Also, putting the parts together usually works a lot better if the parts are thoroughly tested before assembly. That's not bad. Unit tests can be automated with tools such as Jenkins, BuildBot, and so on. All right, there you go.
Okay. Taking a breath.
Yeah.
Namaste.
I mean, he's just saying if you test, you're a better person, I think is what he's saying.
Oh, you're such a troll. Okay. In a hypothetical world, a guy I knew used to have a guy who used to work for him.
So a guy that had a guy that was working for him. So is this
my cousin?
Okay.
My cousin Vinny. He hires this guy. His name's Joey, right? And Joey 100% test coverage. Turned out all the tests basically didn't test anything functional to the app. They kind of just returned true.
Joey, what are you doing?
Joey, forget about it. Come on. No, it was bad. It was. I agree that some automated testing is appropriate. I get what you're saying, that theoretically, if you pick your test framework up front, maybe I am like Paul or Saul rather on the road to Damascus. I'm about to be struck down and see the light, but I just haven't seen the light yet. I mean, I agree in testing business logic, computational logic, any kind of geometry, calculus, any kind of basically what I would call math stuff. Beyond that, I just haven't found the value in UI tests. And that story about my cousin Vinny is true. It's just hard to test UI. So at some point, you don't want the automated GitLab pull request, or rather at the time, I think it was GitHub or Bitbucket, pull request to reject it. So you just fail out and return true. It's bad. I would rather just not write those tests because they cost money. And I think the best way to test UI is to simply run your app, if it's a mobile app on devices, or if it's a web app in browsers, and use the one of your superpowers, which I call sight, to see if the UI is correct.
So you're telling me look at it and see if it's working.
I'm telling you to actually like run through your software after you write it. I know it's unpopular. I get it.
Is that something? Is there like an Uber like app for that where I could just order up a tester? Is that something I could do?
You know, I think there is actually. I know you're kidding, but I'm like 90% sure there is.
Well, that sounds frightening. Let's talk a little bit about your fun with the Microsoft Bot Framework under Linux. I saw you tweeting about this the other day.
Yes.
What's going on over there?
I have been screwing around on Elementary and Pop with .NET Core, and I don't know how familiar we are all with .NET Core these days, but really quick, .NET Core basically is an implementation of .NET and ASP.NET that runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux systems. I actually think it runs on BSD, but I can't be 100% sure on that.
They'll never admit it. They'll never admit it. No. Who would?
They may execute you if you do it, but I'm pretty sure it runs there too.
Alan Jude comes to your house and personally gives you a beatdown.
Yeah, with a hockey stick.
He's very tall. He's very tall.
He's a big dude. You don't want to fight him. Well, he's a tall dude at least. So previously with the Microsoft Bot Framework, it ran on .NET, what I'm going to call .NET proper or .NET Classic, which meant it only ran on Windows without some crazy hacky stuff, and even then there were problems, and even then it only ran on Mac. If you were using C#, right, you could always write Node and even Python for all my snake-loving friends. Now we're up to version 4 because apparently the bot framework gets revved more than anything else that they have. And it runs on .NET Core. You can generate a project on Linux, and it runs just fine.
That's rather impressive.
It's frightening. I mean, JetBrains Writer, C# IDE, or .NET IDE rather, picks it right up, understands the project. VS Code on Linux understands the project. You have IntelliSense. You have everything.
That sounds like a cohesive development environment almost. I don't understand. Let's see. You got
it's almost like they love Linux, right? It's weird.
You got a reply from Alex. It's just a heads up. If you run your bot in Azure and use the free tier bot service, the service likes to sleep, and it doesn't take much inactivity for it to do so.
Yeah, I figured that out this morning the hard way.
Yeah,
I didn't see the tweet. Yeah,
better create a little script to just talk to it every now and then.
Just like ping it. Hey, like Navi from Zelda. You there? You listening?
So with .NET Core being such a thing, what's the future of .NET itself, do you think?
So .NET is like a dysfunctional Thanksgiving Day family dinner. You have old man Uncle .NET proper who's like, back in my day, we had WinForms and nothing. All you kids mixing with Linux and Mac. What's wrong with you? iOS, Xamarin, who let you in the house? We have .NET Core, and we have .NET Standard, which if you didn't like my Archie Bunker impression, which I think ended up being more Red Fox, because yay, accents. It's weird, because .NET Standard is exactly what it implies. It's a standard where all these APIs work on all versions of .NET, and they prefer the term implementations. But not everything is in .NET Standard. So by using .NET Standard, you're limiting yourself to what namespaces and APIs you can call. But the advantage is, one, you don't have to deal with PCLs, which are hot garbage. And not that I want to take a hard position. And you can guarantee, let's say you're writing a library or a NuGet package, that it will work on all existing implementations of .NET, assuming a certain minimum, right? That's pretty powerful, right? If you're writing some sort of data processing library, you kind of want it to focus on .NET Standard, if possible. Xamarin is the weird kid in this thing, because Xamarin is very mono-related still. Mm-hmm. I think what we're going to see is a great unification here of .NET Core and Xamarin at some point. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the value in mono is anymore because, in every case possible, you should probably be using .NET Core, not mono. The big issue with that roadmap is GUI applications. .NET Core is really for console applications and ASP.NET.
Yes.
And all flavors of ASP.NET, right? So MVC, Razor, Blazor, all the good weird stuff they have. So that's where you get into things like Avalonia, right? Where you implement GTK Sharp. I think this is a temporary state of the world, and I think Microsoft's eventually going to collapse everything into, one true .NET that runs everywhere.
So when I got the chance to go down there a while back and talk to them about open sourcing .NET Core and the other things that they were working on regard PowerShell Core and whatnot, I asked them, I said, so does .NET Core eventually replace the traditional .NET? And they kind of looked at each other like, oh, that's the question we didn't really want. But then their answer was interesting. They said that they will have a long tail of Windows users and admins that will need some of the features that are in traditional .NET that they don't have any plans to put in .NET Core. It's like, so for specific Windows admin tasks and whatnot, there's still going to be sort of a vibrant use case for traditional .NET. And .NET Core is more for the rest of the world outside of just Windows.
Well, but .NET Core is effectively going to be the future, right? Like there are some behaviors in .NET
right.
Classic.
Well, I think the implied statement there is that Windows isn't the future. I think is what they were telling me. I think two Microsoft people across the table were like, yeah, we're going to just keep that going for our legacy customers, is essentially what they were telling me without saying those words.
I think Windows is still going to be an important platform for anybody who develops, desktop applications. But I don't think you're going to do it in .NET proper. You're probably going to do it in .NET Core, unless you have some weird legacy reason.
Eventually, that might not be the case yet, but I think it's going there.
Well, the problem now is there's no WPF, there's no UWP for .NET Core.
Right.
There's things like Project Uno. There's things like Avalonia.
Right.
But there's no blessed solution from Microsoft, which, for a lot of the types of organizations that are purchasing .NET software or our .NET shops, not having that Microsoft seal of approval is a problem.
Yeah.
And my bet would be Xamarin would get the love first.
That makes the most sense, right? It's they own it.
They own it.
I think you mean Xamarin.
Oh, I know yours. Tell us about Ximian, by the way.
Oh, really? That's harsh. That's harsh. Ximian was okay. So this is going way back in the Linux days. Ximian was this really cool company that made this awesome software management tool. I'm trying to find the name of it. I think it was called Red Carpet. Oh, I can't remember. Anyways, it was part of where Mono came from and all of that. It was the company that housed all of it. And they made other things that were just some of the coolest tools. I think it was, I'm trying to look it up now because I can't remember if it was called Red Carpet, maybe. I think it was Red Carpet. Yeah, that was it, I think. It was so great. It allowed you to manage software across multiple systems. You get a subscription and then be able to deploy software. Now all I get is nothing. It's all gone away. But that was really something kind of special back in the day, and I really enjoyed it. So that's where the joke comes from. Anyways, that's neither near here nor there. It makes me sound like an old man. You made me sound like the old man on the show now.
Mission in life.
Do you want to talk about this story that's, it's a little bit past now, but people are still they're still talking about it, is Microsoft contributing 60,000 patents to the Open Innovation Network. Which is a consortium, basically a patent pool, I suppose. I don't know if that's the right technical term, but it is a consortium of about 2,600 members who are pledging not to sue each other over those patents. That seems what really, regardless of what the technicalities are, because many have pointed out that if you're not part of the OIN, Microsoft can still go after you, and it does not include the components of Android like XFAT that Microsoft has patent revenue on. People pointed that out. I think if you look aside from that and if you look at the bigger picture, this seems what this really is Microsoft trying to make the largest statement possible to developers who use these technologies to build applications. And that is that Microsoft is on your side and that Microsoft is not going to be going after anybody for trying to use this stuff. This isn't a bait and switch they're doing. They're really invested in these tools and these platforms. and they figured out how to make money off it too. Is also probably what the unsaid message is.
It's that juicy Azure money, right?
Of course, yeah, of course. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, sort of from a development perspective, from a risk perspective, and things like that. Let's say you were going to build an IoT device. There is perhaps less risk in the air now that probably was never really there, but
wow. It's weird that you're looking at my calendar that I have a meeting to discuss building something on Azure Spheres. But
really?
Ding ding ding. So I think this is great, but it has no practical impact on my life.
Yeah.
When I think patents that will affect me from a development perspective, I think ones that have attempted to affect me. It's never like Microsoft, right? Because I'm too small. It's always scumbag lawyer, fails at being a lawyer, has a little bit of money from his practice, buys up some defunct patents from a startup out of bankruptcy, turns around and looks at the top of the App Store, and this is literally something that happened to me, and decides to sue somebody charging $4.99 for a fucking Mac app.
Yep. Yeah, or go after them for a podcast patent. Remember that? Remember the podcast?
I remember that one. Yeah. Mine was text highlighting.
Oh, nice. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a monster.
That is some IP right there.
It's pretty, like, I don't know. I know, since we've been doing the show since 2012, I have been less like ragey on Microsoft, except when they screwed me on WinRT, which I still remember. You guys were dicks. WinRT forever.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really afraid of them from an IP perspective. I'm afraid of like semi-retired lawyer who wants to, put money in his grandkids' trust fund. And so I hate to make it sound like that. But
I would argue though that they have made an impact. It's for you. It's not one about your legal risk. It is the lens in which you view Microsoft now. Like it has further focused that lens in such that they really do honestly seem committed to this statement they've been making for a while, and that just plays a role when you're making a calculus about Microsoft and their motives, don't you think? Like it's
sure, it does make me more comfortable building on Microsoft technologies. Yes,
that's the way to try. That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah, and it is sending sort of a subtle messaging to, not subtle actually. In fact, it's a very bold message to a lot of developers. I think it makes, I think they're really making a calculated move here that is going to pay off dividends for a long time for the Azure platform. Even if they were to drop their Android licensing revenue, the statement, the messaging here, the communication to developers, I think is brilliant. I think this is a masterpiece. What Microsoft has been doing for a couple of years, nobody is being this respectful and this committed to creating tools and platforms for developers. At least from what I sit.
I will say for this next project I'm hoping to kick off after Griffin, we're evaluating a number of IoT boards. And no one has been more responsive or supportive than Microsoft.
They're hungry, it seems like, with this.
I'm sorry?
When it comes to getting developers on board and using their tools and using Azure, they legitimately seem hungry the way a young company seems hungry.
Yeah, they do. It feels like talking to another tiny company. I have to remember, wait, this guy's from Microsoft. They're like, but they're willing to do all kinds of things. Like, here's some documentation. We'll put you on the phone with an engineer. Like, it's something, if you had asked me, like, even 5 years ago, in a million years, never would have expected this kind of, frankly, support from Microsoft, right? Like, it feels weird. I gotta be honest, because I wasn't an old Linux hand like you, Chris, but when you're a Mac guy, you're not particularly fond of Microsoft.
Oh yeah,
either.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of bad blood there for a long time.
I was, it's, I never would have guessed, right? Like, listeners of the show will know I dealt with another large software vendor who charges for software. And just the difference between dealing with them, who is on paper more friendly to Linux-based projects, and dealing with Microsoft is like night and day. I still have some fear. Like, Azure is not cheap. I worry about too much of my stuff being tied into Azure.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, Chris, I'm going to take a side tangent here.
Do it, man.
If you're running GitLab CE, you need to patch it to the current version.
I wonder if we have.
I just did that this morning. There's a security exploit.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So just a quick heads up.
Now
you have to be like 3 versions behind for it to matter. But yeah, it's just a PSA.
Now I think we've treaded on this ground before about the long shift that everybody's had to make in regards to their view of Microsoft, and so it feels a little overtreaded. But they keep making these shifts. They managed to. I think the reason why the conversation keeps coming back up is they keep making these shifts that are surprising. You think just when you're getting comfortable with, okay, so that's their commitment, that's their level, huh? Okay, and then the next shoe drops, and then it's a whole nother range of stuff. 60,000 patents is going to make the OIN network a serious contender. Their membership rates are going to skyrocket. It's going to be huge. There's going to be all kinds of companies that join that to enjoy that.
And if you can afford it, the beautiful thing about OIN, and I am not an attorney, Chris is not an attorney, though he does play one on TV, a pornographic channel, is OIN is a mutual protection treaty, right? It's effectively NATO for patents, is it not?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Right. So if you're a company who's big enough to afford membership there, but small enough that you would forcibly have to settle patent lawsuits, OIN might be what you want.
Yeah. Well, there you go. They keep the times, they keep on changing. I'll just give a quick mention. We have a link in the show notes about this Redis Labs situation. The Fedora and Debian community are discussing potentially forking Redis or Redis modules because of a common clause which has been added on top of the license. So it's like essentially a sub-license for some of these modules that says you can't earn any money using them. So these modules that were parts of Redis that have been, in some cases, contributed by the open source community, had their license amended. They're still open source. You just can't make any money off them now. Which both Debian and Fedora, well, how the hell are we going to ship that? Like, that's not free software. That's restricting what the user can do with the software. And we've got users that use Ubuntu, which is based on Debian, and they're using this stuff to make money. So this isn't going to work. And so now the talk of a fork is coming up. It's a messy situation. I have no idea what Redis is thinking. And the potential canary in the coal mine in this particular instance, at least according to one of the module developers who was tweeting about this situation, he says that prior to the announcement, Redis Labs asked him to sign a contributor license agreement, a CLA, which granted the copyrights and patent rights of their contributions to Redis Labs. The developer comments, it just seems like such a great coincidence that they introduced the clause in the CLA right after ensuring they had all the rights on the contributors made to the projects. It just seems really strange. They added that, ensuring that anybody couldn't make claims on the software. It was like the CLA dropped, and then the new common clause sublicense that said don't make any money dropped. So the community's red hot pissed at Redis Labs, and a fork is brewing. It's
Have I mentioned how I feel about patent and IP lawyers yet today?
It is one of those things. You watch this go down. You want to read more? We'll have a link in the show notes. But I just thought, jeez, right?
I read the article. This just sounds like a complete waste. Like, I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, but this is one of those things where, you're all very smart people. You're software engineers. Maybe we could do something productive together instead of just being assholes.
Now, what? You crazy. You crazy.
I know. I understand. And by the way, I heard a rumor about you.
Oh, me, huh?
Oh, we're going off the rails here, buddy.
Whoop, whoop.
I heard that you are now a partisan.
Oh, yeah? What kind of? For which particular flavor?
KDE. I've been listening to Linux Action Show.
Yeah, that is kind of me.
News.
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's not for everybody. I'm going to give you that.
Okay, can I make a confession on the air?
Yeah.
I think I'm in love with Cassidy.
Oh, from Elementary OS? It's that beard.
It's Mac, but on good hardware.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
love it when you say that to them, by the way.
It's, yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I think so. Here's what I think is I think that, in my personal opinion, there are two great desktops for Linux right now, and Plasma is the one that is a utilitarian workhorse. It is a tackle box. It's got all kinds of drawers, and you've got a few extra screwdrivers in there that you don't need to use. But every now and then you open up that tackle box, and you're like, holy crap, I've been wanting my tackle box to have this for 20 years. I can't believe this is finally here. So that's KDE, Plasma. In fact, check out error.show/50. Joe, Popey, and Daniel Foray from Elementary OS try to kick around why there's so much hype around Plasma today and try to understand what all the hype is about. Shifting gears, though, to the second best desktop, it is got to be, and I can say because I've seen the pre-release.
Aqua.
No, it's Juno. Juno is, I'm running the RC right now, and Elementary OS 5.0 Juno, which is the release that's coming out very soon, is unbelievably refined.
That's what I'm running.
Yes,
right,
if you just take screenshots of individual components of the OS and look at them on their own in isolation. They sent out a press kit where they did this. They took screenshots of various parts of the different application interfaces, so you could just look at them and analyze them. And it's so well done. There's really nothing quite that refined on Linux. Plus, it's well performant.
I will say, though, one of the weird side effects of running Elementary on my workstation is I am now preferring apps developed for Elementary in the Vala toolkit.
Sure. Because it all is consistent. It all looks well.
Right. The shortcuts are exactly what I expect them to be. Now, I'm still running Pop on my Galago. I don't know, what I'm going to do long term, but I wouldn't be surprised if I end up just being an Elementary guy, because this is stable, pretty, and I'm not running a bunch of Electron apps other than Slack.
The other thing that's nice is at the end of the day, you have that Ubuntu base, which is well supported. There's tons of how-to guides. There's tons of debs and software available. So you have the access and availability to the world's best supported desktop Linux distribution while running it in a refined UI that in my opinion, is architected better than GNOME Shell and has an outstanding starting guide for developers with a consistent messaging throughout the entire guide on how to build applications, how to distribute those applications to Elementary users, and how to monetize the application. And in Juno, they're introducing a new feature where I don't know why other app stores couldn't have figured this out. It took the guys at Elementary OS, I guess, to figure out how app stores should work. In their App Center now, in Juno, you can try an application before you buy it. Get ready for that. You can try an application before you buy it, and then later on down the road, like when you go to do updates, it'll say, hey, you've been using this application for about 3 weeks, and now there's an update available. Would you like to kick them $1?
It's weird. I feel like I used to know a guy who, for a number of years, has been saying we should have free trials of professional desktop software.
It's weird, huh? Yeah, so I think it's a really solid platform for you. And there is cross-pollination between the Pop! OS developers and the Elementary OS developers. They collaborate quite a bit.
I know. I've met Cassidy. So, question though, this is something I probably shouldn't ask you, but let's ask you. You're a Linux man. If I were to write an Linux man, it's like Batman, but
like Florida man.
It's like
You're
Adam
Florida
West
man.
Batman.
You're Florida man, and I'm Linux.
I am not Florida man. You know what I have yet to put a burning tire on my lawn.
Fair enough.
Just saying. If I were to write an application in Vala for Elementary, would it just come over to GNOME and KDE? No, right? My understanding.
No, that's possible. You probably. I mean, I'm not sure if all the Vala dependencies would be there, but yeah, totally.
Yeah, see, that's where things fall apart.
There are many ways to run those Elementary apps.
Well, I can use a Flatpak and make it wildly insecure.
That's there. I mean, there are non-universal packaging ways to get those Elementary OS apps right now. For better or for worse, you can get them outside the App Center and run them on any Linux you want. But a Flatpak or a Snap would be the way to do that. That'd be ideal, really. And Flatpaks,
I can see
Snaps
a Snap. I should.
Yeah, and they're pretty easy to make, really. I can make them. So if I can figure it out, just anybody can. I never really did get a deb figured out, but I can get. I just wasn't patient.
If you can co-sign for the iOS App Store, you can basically do anything.
Yeah, so check it out. I just before we go, but you're right. Check it out. Juno is going to be out soon. I plan to have Daniel Foray on tomorrow's Linux Unplugged Tuesday, which by the time this is coming out, it'll already be out. It'll be at Linux Unplugged /271, I believe. And I'll have an interview with Daniel on there, and I got a couple of questions for him. So if you have any, drop them in Slack if you have questions about the project. Or
I have one question, and I'll say it on the air here because I want to let the comments blow up. Why Vala?
Why Vala? Okay. All right. I'll
Why
ask
Vala?
him. I've asked him before.
Pitch me on Vala.
But yeah. All right. Well, I got one more story I thought maybe we could chat about before we run for the day.
Sure.
I debated. I think Adobe announcing their cross-platform Rush editor, and also
you're gonna trigger me.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, and also mentioning Photoshop CC for the iPad, which actually seems legitimate, is big, because I've been debating getting the iPad to supplement my Linux workstation, so I could open up my Photoshop files. That'd be nice, but that's not. I don't want to talk about that. Instead, I just thought it'd be fun to give Google a bit of a kicking. And this is really all in, good-natured humor because...
No, can we talk about the Adobe thing? Do you have a minute?
Sure, I do. I just figured we didn't have anything to say.
So, I have lots to say.
Of course.
Yeah, this is a sensitive subject. Remember WinRT? I think I mentioned it earlier in the show.
Yeah, I vaguely do recall it.
Vaguely. The idea of a productivity tablet that I could develop pro-level software for is like a fantasy of mine. I don't understand what could be in the new iPad Pro that would make that more viable. Now, I know by the time we release a show, we could already know everything, right? It comes out next week, right? Or a couple days.
Yeah, spoiler alert, we're pre-recording because I'm at Meet BSD. So,
which really means he's chained in a basement and they're forcing him to wipe out Linux and install
They're
BSD.
making me apologize for Linus is what's going to happen. Oh, man, they're going to rib me.
This is a desperate cry for help.
Oh, man.
This is like an SOS.
They are going to rib me about Linus so much. You know that.
You know what's funny? I went to a .NET meetup and people knew about the Linus thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was general.
And I whipped out my Galago Pro and they're like, "Oh, you're running Linux."
Oh. Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
It's a general story, and they already very closely follow the politics of Linux, so that way they have fodder for their jokes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So why is this different now, I guess?
I think it's...
Why?
I think it's different now because the market has had a couple of years to get a little better. Like there's apps like Airmail, which are just fantastic email applications that didn't exist a few years ago. And
Sure.
the machines got more powerful. And then I think Marzipan may result in a lot more iPad apps because essentially to make a Mac iOS app, you make an iPad-styled app.
Right.
And so you get the iPad app for free.
Right. This is what I think, right? First of all, there's a big delta between Airmail and Photoshop, right? Like a huge
Fair.
delta. I think it's Marzipan. I think the bet Adobe's making is that if I write a iPad Pro version of my software, crazy guys like Mike Dominic who really, really, really want to do pro level work on tablets will buy a new iPad Pro and buy my software. And then in a year, I'll be able to run it on a Macintosh.
Did you see the Google Slate, the Pixel Slate?
Yeah, it's not gonna go anywhere.
I think so. Here, I'll tell you my
Okay.
thoughts around why a professional tablet appeals to me now instead of I've been without a tablet for nearly 2 years. I did not have a use for them, and I just eventually thought, you know what, I'm not using mine enough, and I gave it to my son, and now he has it, and I've come around on it because some of the tools I prefer to use, some of the applications I prefer to use are legitimately better in mobile versions. The Zoom meeting app, the Slack chat app, the mail application. I like those better than I like the desktop equivalents. I prefer to use them on mobile, but my phone is too small. And I kind of want to have it next to my laptop in a stand, maybe even up like on an arm, so it's at the same level as my screen. With a keyboard paired via Bluetooth. I think that's going to be my work setup, switching between applications. And then I want to be able to, at the end of the day, take that tablet home or take that tablet with me and sort of go quasi offline. I can still do all of my pro communications, all my work communications, all my biz dev stuff. But not necessarily like the show research and show prep and all of that stuff that I need a laptop for. And I feel like that kind of balance where I move off a lot of those Electron apps and move them to native apps on, well, quote unquote native apps on the iPad is sort of a perfect division line.
It sounds like what you're saying to me is something you and I have been saying for years. Native is better than Electron.
Yeah. I mean, really, a lot of cases, they're just probably rendering web pages inside the
yeah,
app.
Well, that's true.
But really, if it just works better, that's what I'm going for. That's where the division of labor is going to be. Is those types of applications go on the tablet, and it is kind of like having a second. I've always had two computers on my desk. I've just since I was literally a kid that could collect computers. I mean, middle school. From middle school on to now, I have had two computers on my desk, sometimes more if I could fit them. And this has been sort of, I think, the evolution of that. Now I'm going to have this and my laptop on my desk. That's my suspicion. I know I'm crazy, but maybe guys like you have finally gotten to me.
Right? You're not crazy. When the iPad Pro, the first 12-inch one came out, I think we did a show about it, and I was all excited. But then the market just wasn't there for professional software, right? So I guess the thing Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to respond really quick. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's just before we go too far off topic, Emily++ says, why not just put an external monitor on an ARM and hook that up to the laptop? Because then you have the keyboard and all of that. It's mainly a preference of the applications. I just don't think they're as good on the laptop. And not only is it the applications, specifically Mail. MailSpring is good on Linux, but I need something much more robust. I deal with a lot of email from both the JB audience and also Linux Academy. I deal with a ton of email. So I need something, and I have like 6 or 7 or 8 accounts.
Why don't you just ignore most of your email like I do?
I try to, yeah.
Problem solved.
That has caused other problems.
I actually don't do that. I reply to everybody usually.
So the MailSpring application's okay, and it does do that, but I want something more robust. And the other thing is those applications, not only are they better on the iOS version, but it means I can remove them from the laptop. So the laptop is doing less things, it's consuming less memory, it has less CPU drag, and all of that stuff is contained on the iPad. So if I want to go into full research mode on the laptop, I want to go deep on a topic and I don't want any distractions, I don't have all my messengers blaring at me. Every new meeting request and email and Telegram that comes in and Slack message that comes in will be confined on the iOS device, which has a sophisticated DND and downtime management system. And the laptop will be a place of work where I can write or research or prepare. And that, to me, could be a very valuable division of labor that I can very easily just turn on no distraction mode. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm going to experiment with it. If they release an iPad Pro soon, I may pick it up and give it a go and report back.
I might pick it up too, but
look at us.
Well, no, because I honestly want to see that Star Trek future where we have professional software on tablets, especially because you and I travel we're like hobos basically.
I know.
Gypsies, rather.
I literally am. I literally live in an RV and I move it around all the time.
Like, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. Can I make a confession?
Yeah.
One of the most versatile travel devices I have is my Windows convertible HP Spectre.
Oh, really? Because it's just super...
Because, if I'm walking around like a hangar or whatever the hell I'm doing,
like
I can use the pen and make notes or,
So you like having the pen, huh? I hadn't really made
I love the pen.
I hadn't gone that far yet in my decision process.
But it's heavy, right? So if I had a 12-inch iPad Pro with a better... Dirty little secret that iOS developers won't want to tell you, the Apple Pencil sucks. The pen support on Windows is a lot better. Like, I just want to say this again. WinRT was great.
Wow. I think that's almost it right
it's there. It's got to be the end of the show, I
think it is, actually. All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, hopefully I'll survive Meet BSD and be back for an episode, which, as far as people are listening, will just be at the regular time, coder.show/RSS if you want to plug the feed directly into your client, and coder.show/subscribe if you want all the various links you can click, and coder.show/330 for links specific to this episode. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you want to send people?
Go to themadbotter.com and @Dumanuku on Twitter.
I will do that. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm @ChrisLAS. The network is @JupiterSignal. And if you're going to be down in California at Meet BSD, I'll see you there. Boom. All right, we got to come up with a title.
Oh, buddy, I just looked at the title suggestions. We're not making friends.
Oh, RJ, he tries every day. You know, he's got one highlight of his day, so I don't take it from him. I figure, you know what? He's probably doesn't have a lot going on. If he manages to make it for every show and do that, he probably needs that.
That's a little sad.
I know, right? I know.
Okay.
When you think about it, it's a little intense.
I mean, I don't go on BSD now and suggest like Mac OS topics.
Oh,
More than once a week.
All tests return true. Joey's bad tests, Vinny's unit tests, always true. Those are my favorites because I submitted them.
I like Vinny's. You submitted them all. I like Vinny's unit tests.
VINNY is appropriate spelling, as far as you know. VINNY. I don't actually know. VINNY.
Is this like some sort of like identification group? Because I'm the resident guinea here. I
yes.
give you the answer.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the correct way to spell.
That's how I
name.
figured,
yes.
at least. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your Monday off next week. The podcast will go out as if you had done a show.
Chris, I'm going to be breaking hearts and losing money.
Yeah, that's true. I should. Yeah. Never off. Just enjoy an additional hour of time then.
Does Lady Jupes have a spare like roof bed that I can sleep on?
We could build one. Yeah, we could totally build one.
Build one. My wife might kick me out the rate I'm going. It's been
we got an air mattress here in the
weeks.
studio. Air mattress and a Netflix connection. So that's usually where I tell people to crash.
Love it.
All right, Mr. Dominic.
All right.
Have a good week.
Have a good week.
Bye, Z. Okay, chat room. What do you say? What do you know? What do you say? Vinny's unit test it is, I guess. So I'm going to get out of here. We have a really fun Linux Unplugged planned for tomorrow. So I hope you can make it for that because I'm really looking forward to it. And then the Ask Nor program will be up after that. And then I jump in my car and I start driving to meet BSD. So just a few more hours here at the studio. So I hope you can make it to Linux Unplugged tomorrow. Huge show. Got the new Ubuntu release, got a new Elementary release, got a couple of massive stories we need to break down, and a few other tidbits, including the launch of our new GitLab instance and a community challenge. See you tomorrow.